Think about the argument you regret the most in your life. You raised your voice, laid out your arguments, maybe you were even right. But once the argument was over, what changed? Did the other person change their mind? Did they understand you better? Did things get better between you? No. Most likely the opposite happened. Things got even more tense. You drifted further apart, and you were left with a strange emptiness inside. You were right, but nothing had changed. That feeling feels familiar, doesn't it, my friend? Because you've been through this too. Someone says something hits a nerve, and before you know it, you're no longer in control. The words keep coming, but what are they really doing? The person across from you is already on the defensive, not really listening anymore. Two people talking at the same time, neither truly hearing the other. Two people trying to win, but in reality, both are losing. The argument ends, the topic is closed, but nothing is actually resolved. Energy is drained, the relationship gets strained, and both people become a little more hardened inside. And this is exactly where most people draw the wrong conclusion. They say, I need to prepare better arguments. They say, I need to speak more forcefully. They say, next time I'll be better prepared. But this is a completely wrong way of thinking, because the problem isn't that the arguments are weak. The problem is that they're playing the game wrong. It's important to realize this. Debating is a game, and every game has its rules. However, most people enter this game playing by the rules set by their opponent. When your opponent raises their voice, you raise yours too. When your opponent resorts to personal attacks, you do the same. When your opponent changes the subject, you follow suit. And so from the very start, you're playing on the ground your opponent has laid out. No matter how good you are on that ground, it's already their home turf. Most people think they can win an argument by speaking forcefully, raising their voice, or listing more points. True masters, however, know the opposite. The moment you start arguing, you've already begun to lose. Because arguing means reacting. It means going on the defensive. It means handing over control to the other side. But when you ask the right question, the whole picture changes. You're calm. Your opponent is flustered. You're steering the conversation. Your opponent is scrambling to explain. While you remain at the center, the other person is grappling with their own internal conflicts. You've shifted the game to your own turf. And it's much harder to lose a game played on your own turf. A wise man who lived in ancient Greece unlocked this secret 2,400 years ago. His name was Socrates. He would walk the streets of Athens, talk to people, and ask questions. Politicians, poets, generals, philosophers. He spoke with all of them, and he never lost a debate. But know this, it wasn't because he was always right. It was because he never argued. He didn't try to convince anyone. He didn't impose his views. He didn't shout, raise his voice, or get worked up. He simply asked questions. Just when those facing him were at their most confident, as they laid out their strongest arguments, Socrates would sit and listen quietly. Then he would ask a question in a calm voice. And that single question would be so apt, so sharp, and asked at just the right moment that the people he was facing would suddenly find themselves trapped in their own words. They would become unable to defend what they had intended to defend. Because Socrates did not attack the argument, he simply directed a question at its foundation. And if the foundation was rotten, everything built upon it would collapse. Socrates' most famous saying perfectly sums up this method. The only thing I know is that I know nothing. But beneath the surface of this statement lies a much deeper strategy. Socrates was not truly ignorant. He was using his ignorance as a weapon. People spoke to him with a sense of superiority because he appeared self-assured, yet ignorant. But precisely in that moment, in that void, people laid bare their true thoughts, their true beliefs, their true weaknesses. And Socrates simply waited. Then he asked. His weapon was just 5 questions, nothing else. No loud tone of voice, no complex rhetorical strategy, No years of honed oratory skills, just 5 questions, and these questions would dismantle the belief systems people thought were their strongest, within minutes, through their own internal contradictions. Today I'm going to share these 5 questions with you. But first I need to say this. These are powerful tools, and like any powerful tool, your intention determines everything. If you use them to belittle others, satisfy your ego, or appear clever, you'll simply become a manipulative person. But if you use them to seek the truth, think more clearly, and invite the person across from you into a better conversation, that's when you'll truly become empowered. Socrates was aware of this distinction, and this distinction is what made his name endure throughout history. If you're curious about these questions, let's get started, my friend. First question, what exactly do you mean by that? This is perhaps the simplest looking question, yet it creates the deepest impact. Because people think they think with words, but in reality, words often think for them. They've heard a concept so many times that they assume they truly understand it. But when you ask, it turns out that the concept is completely empty. Think about it. How many times have you heard the word freedom? How many times have you heard someone say, "I want to be free"? And if you ask that person, what exactly does freedom mean to you? What would they say? The ability to travel, working without a boss, not needing anyone's approval, not having to get up early in the morning. It means something different to everyone, but no one takes the time to define it. The word is used, but the meaning remains vague, and every discussion built on vagueness ends without reaching clarity. Socrates would do exactly that. For example, when people told him that justice is obeying the law, he wouldn't engage in an argument. He would simply ask questions. What if the law is unjust? He would ask. People would freeze, because those who thought they understood the concept had never truly examined it. Socrates trapped them in their own words with a single question. You can use this too. When someone tells you, "You're so selfish," don't get into an argument. Even if you feel cornered, stay calm and ask, "What exactly do you mean by selfish?" From that moment on, the game is played on your terms. The person across from you will be forced to explain, define, and justify themselves. You just listen. And most of the time as they explain, they begin to realize how weak or how broad their claim is. They're answering themselves, not you. Meanwhile, you simply observe, having avoided the argument. Use this question in your own internal debates as well. When you say, "I want to be happy," stop. Think about what happiness actually means to you. Is it peace, excitement, meaning, success, or all of the above? When you ask yourself this question, you'll begin to see what you truly want much more clearly. Because without clarity, there's no action. And clarity begins with definition. Remember, my friend, the better you know yourself, the better you know what you want. Second question, how do you know that? This question strikes at the root, not just the surface, because most people's beliefs aren't the result of their own research. They're inherited, heard from family, absorbed from the media, shaped by the environment, and they're carried forward without ever being questioned or tested. Think about it. How many beliefs do you hold without ever investigating their source? You say those people are untrustworthy. How do you know they're untrustworthy? You say that brand is high quality. Have you experienced that brand's quality, or do you believe it simply because you heard it from someone else? You say money makes people unhappy. Is this idea your own, or are you repeating it because someone else said it? Most people never ask themselves these questions because asking is uncomfortable. Asking means you might realize your beliefs are unfounded, and by nature people prefer to ignore that foundation rather than confront its lack of grounding. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius summed this up beautifully. What you hear is a point of view, not the truth. What you see is a perspective, not the truth. This is precisely the line that separates the person who truly thinks from the person who merely parrots. One internalizes knowledge, the other simply carries it. One thinks, the other echoes. When someone makes a confident claim, don't attack them directly. Just ask, "That's very interesting. Where did you get that information?" And then be silent. Just wait. Watch how they try to answer. If they say, "Everyone says so," there's no evidence, only repetition. If they say, "I read it somewhere," they don't remember the source. If they just say, "It's just the way it is," they haven't thought about it at all. Every answer is actually a confession. It's a silent confession of how solid or how hollow their belief is, and apply this to yourself as well. When you want to do something and the thought, "I'm not capable of doing this," crosses your mind, stop. Ask yourself where that thought is coming from. Ask yourself how long you've been thinking this way. Is this thought truly a product of your own experience, or is it something someone else said that has taken root within you? Because sometimes the heaviest chains are forged by others, but we carry them, mistaking them for our own thoughts, for years, sometimes a lifetime. The third question, what if you're wrong? This question strikes right at the heart of pride. People cling to their ideas like armor. Even the thought that they might be wrong feels dangerous because the idea is no longer just an idea. It has become part of their identity. That political view becomes part of who you are. That belief shapes how you see the world. That habit begins to define you. And that's why letting go of an idea starts to feel like letting go of yourself. But that's exactly why this question is so powerful. Because cornering someone by directly telling them they're wrong triggers their defense mechanisms. People become even more defensive. They close themselves off to understanding. Nothing changes, only the walls grow thicker. But when you ask, "What if you're wrong?" a different door opens. This question doesn't feel like an attack. It feels like an invitation. It's really asking, "Shall we think this through together?" Yet it carries an invisible blade within it. Socrates would corner arrogant people with precisely this question. First, he would let them speak. He would let them feel smart. Then he would ask, "What if you're wrong?" The man who had just been speaking as if he were the center of the world would suddenly find himself lost in his own thoughts. Because answering this question is difficult. Saying, "I'm right," sounds like aggression. Saying, "I might be wrong," however, undermines everything he said up to that point. A person who can say, "I might be wrong," is dangerous. Not because they're weak, but because they can learn, because they can adapt. You can't teach anything to a man who thinks he knows everything. But a man who knows he might be wrong keeps growing, keeps changing, keeps sharpening. That's why, my friend, when you encounter a proud person, don't argue. Just ask and wait. Question 4. What would someone who disagrees with you say? This is the question that bursts people's mental bubbles the fastest, because most people live inside the bubble of their own thoughts. They pay attention only to information that supports their views, and listen only to people who think the same way they do. When they hear an opposing view, instead of taking it seriously, they immediately reject it. Instead of trying to understand it, they only try to refute it. And people living inside this bubble eventually begin to believe that what's inside the bubble is the real world. But if you truly understand an issue, you also know the strongest argument against it. Because you can't understand the whole picture by knowing only one side. This isn't just a debate technique, it's the very essence of mental maturity, my friend. To truly embrace an idea, you must first question it, test it, and see if it can withstand the harshest counter-arguments without crumbling. If it holds up, the idea is sound. If it doesn't, you'll be glad you tested it. When the person across from you is explaining their viewpoint, ask, "What would someone who opposes you say?" When you ask this question, one of two things happens. Either they actually start thinking, and the conversation deepens right then and there. Or it becomes clear that the person hasn't truly understood the opposing viewpoint. And at that moment it becomes clear that their idea isn't built on a solid foundation, but rather on habit and repetition. You should ask yourself this question, my friend, whenever you face major life decisions or confront your deepest convictions. If you can't answer it, it means you haven't truly earned that belief yet. You've merely inherited it. And like everything else you've inherited, you don't yet know if it's truly yours. The fifth question, what if everyone thought like you? This is the final blow. It drags theory into reality, bringing the abstract down to the concrete. An idea may look beautiful, seem logical, or even be true. But does that idea still hold up when applied by millions of people? Does it still work? This question tests that, and it's a test most ideas aren't prepared for. Philosophers call this the universalization test. Socrates, however, referred to it as reduction to absurdity. An idea or action must be valid and viable, not just for you, but when applied universally. If it's only suitable for you, it's not a principle, it's a loophole. Socrates believed that true principles stand even when applied to everyone. For example, the idea that small lies should sometimes be told to protect people is accepted as true by some. Let's consider what the world would be like if everyone did this. What would the concept of trust mean? How would people come to believe one another's words? How could one trust what a mother tells her child, believe what a doctor tells a patient, or place value on the promises a leader makes to his people? The answer is clear, my friend. This idea cannot withstand universal application. Therefore, it is not sound. And this isn't just applicable to grand moral debates. You can apply this method in everyday life, in business decisions, and in relationship dynamics as well. If someone puts forward a principle, scale it up to reality and ask this question: what would happen if everyone did this? If the answer holds up, the idea holds up. If the answer falls apart, the idea falls apart too. It's that simple, yet that sharp. And now I need to tell you the most important part, my friend, because these 5 questions alone won't and can't dismantle every argument. The real power lies in the attitude that follows the question, asking it and then remaining silent. That's where the mystery lies. Don't fill the silence. Don't rush to answer. Don't immediately add your own interpretation. Just ask and wait. That silence may seem simple, but it holds immense pressure within it. The person across from you confronts their own thoughts in that silence. They feel the inadequacy of their answer. They see their own internal contradictions, and you're just waiting, calm, confident, still. The modern world fears this silence. It wants to fill it immediately. If there's no sound, it feels uneasy, so it adds something, changes the subject, laughs, or apologizes. But if you can endure it, the power stays with you. Because the one who holds the silence is often the one truly speaking. The ability to wait, patience, composure, these aren't the things that win an argument. They're the things that make an argument unnecessary. Socrates was sentenced to death because he kept asking these questions. Think about it, my friend. He only asked questions, but that was considered dangerous enough, because he showed people their own lies. And most people prefer to eliminate the one who brings that truth rather than face the uncomfortable reality. It was like this 2,400 years ago, and it's still like this today. People don't change, they just change their clothes. But know this too. When these questions are used as a weapon in an argument, they only make you cunning. They provide a temporary advantage, but they don't build anything real. When used to seek the truth, think more clearly, and invite the person across from you into a deeper place. They make you wise, and wisdom lasts far longer than cunning. So ask. Always ask and question. Once you learn to ask the right question, you'll no longer fear any answer, because the person asking the question always stands on firmer ground. Remember, it's the person asking the question who directs the conversation, not the one who has to answer. It's not the argument, but the question. Not the voice, but the silence. Not the defense, but curiosity. Everything lies within this. If this video has raised your awareness even a little, liking the video and subscribing shows me that I'm not alone on this journey. Finally, keep moving forward on your own path. Everything is in your hands.